Seeing none, let's move to the Chief Financial Officer's report. Tim?
Yeah, we're halfway through the year. The operating revenue for the month of December was $478,000. The total revenue, $498,000. The majority of that revenue for the month was in real estate taxes, about $120,000. And what's called mandated categoricals, that's reimbursements for special education and for transportation. Those two sets of reimbursements were $211,000.
Will that bring us up to what we need, or are we still off a lot?
In terms of, well, the mandated categoricals, the amounts we've received are behind. We've received one payment so far in each of those. We're supposed to get 4 every year. On the property taxes, there was a question regarding that in the education fund, for example, we're at 95%. Last year at this time, we were at 96% after the first 6 months on that first installment that's supposed to come in August. By the end of the year, we were at 100%. So I think we're going to continue receiving property taxes from that August billing period as we go through the next few months, even when we get into the March timeframe and we start collecting the next set of.
But on the categorical reimbursements, how much more do they owe us? You said 4 payments a year. Is this the first payment of 4?
We're at 29%. We've gotten $211,000. So this is the first one on each of those. So,
Okay.
We still have about $750,000 left to collect on those.
You have a concern whether we're going to get them all this year, right?
Last year, what they did is they started out real slow in terms of paying them, and then as they get into the second half of the year, they picked up more and they made all of the payments. So I'm hoping they're going to do that again this year. There was a question regarding, on the operating expenditures. Operating expenditures for the month were $1.5 million. Total expenditures were a little over $5 million. December is the month where we make payments on the bond principal and interest. The combination of those two was about $3,300,000. So that was the majority, obviously, of the $5 million in expenditures for the month. The operating expenditures for the month, if you look at the financial statements, shows that we're at 39% of budget, but that includes working cash. The working cash expenditures are just the transfers into the capital projects fund, and we've only transferred, as in December, we had only transferred $250,000 out of $6.5 million, which is why that 39% is so low. If you look at the other funds, other operating funds, it's closer to 50% in most of those funds. On the quarterly projections, I had said that the property taxes I thought would come in at the end of the year at or near budget. Property tax refunds are running significantly less than what we had budgeted. We budgeted $374,000 this year. As you remember, we dropped that. We cut that down in half in each of the operating funds. General state aid is going to end the year about $78,000 under budget simply because the state cut back on the amounts that they're paying. Those are the most significant areas where I see, other than what we talked about with the reimbursements for special education and transportation. That's where I see really the possible areas where there could be a difference from budget. Purchase service contracts, I highlighted in the report that we have 4 purchase service contracts coming up this year. HR Imaging, which is the photography contract that we have, Jostens, which is our yearbook, Call One, which is our phone service, and EBC. In fact, tomorrow is the preliminary renewal meeting for EBC. We get the final renewal numbers in March. There was a question regarding whether or not the Call One would include cell phone, internet, and cable, and actually we don't. We don't pay for cable. The internet is through Comcast, and cell phones are through Verizon, so those really aren't on those kind of multi-year contracts that we have to look at and do RFPs for. We can switch those at any time that we want. The Call One is just for the hard line.
But how do we comprehensively look, say, at telecom to see if we, put it all together and could get a bigger discount than having, we pay cell phones for a bunch of administrators where we fully reimburse their fee. If we considered, if we put all of our telecom services together, if we could acquire them at a cheaper price than, treating them all as individual transactions?
We can take a look at that when we go out. I mean, the difference in prices is fairly significant, obviously, between what we're paying for a hard line every month and what we're paying for cell phones. I think our cell phone bill every month is about $700. So it's really not, it's pretty insignificant compared to the number of lines that we have.
Isn't our call one a voice over IP system through our servers?
Yes, I believe so. That would be.
Mike?
Call one is for the lines that come into the building. Internally, we have a voice over IP system, but that's handled by a different company. Telecommunications.
Well, I would just make the same recommendation I've done other. When you say it's 700, does that include all the separate cell bills we pay for all the employees we reimburse?
Yes.
Oh, okay, but I mean, if we're gonna go out to do something for bid, and we consider all the different things we have, is it worth the effort and to see if we can get a better price on it?
Yeah, I'll take a look at that. That was really all the questions there were. There were some recommendations on formats for the reports, and that I'll have to take some time to look at.
And that's a follow-up to the item from the letter.
Right,
He asked me to
right.
do that.
Right, but I didn't really have time to look into that today.
And the treasurer said that he'll do the work for you, really, right?
I don't think he said he'll do the work.
But he said, I saw the meeting, and he did say that he could do anything we ask him to do.
That's what I thought he said, too.
He doesn't-
Thanks, Matt.
So,
Oh, okay.
I will just tell you right now,
Semantics.
remember, that tape is out there, so
Exactly.
we have it, so.
Okay.
All right, principal's report, and before we start, Chris, I wasn't here when the interim tag was removed and you're full-time principal. I congratulate you. I think it's a very good hire for us, and you're doing a great job, so.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, man, I had a question for Tim.
Sure.
In terms of the general state aid, I mean, is every school hit proportionally the same? And does the state have an obligation to make that payment?
Every district is hit the same in terms of if they prorate it and they say, okay, we're only going to pay 89% or 85% of what you're entitled to. The calculation is based on the wealth of your district. So in a district like ours where we have very high, property tax revenue, our general state aid is very low in comparison to many other districts. But yes, once they do the calculations and say, this is what a district's entitled to based on the number of students they have, based on the property wealth in the district, then they prorate every district the same percentage.
Then how can we be short? I still don't understand that.
Well,
Short of what they promised,
If
or what we expected, or?
I submit the attendance figures in June, which is what they use to calculate what your general state aid is supposed to be, and then they come back and say, okay, based on that, your general state aid is $800,000. And then at some point, they come along and they say, well, we're not going to pay $800,000. We're only going to pay 85% of that because that's all the money we have. They do that. They prorate the amount,
Right, so we're counting on 800,000 every year, and then we get,
and then they come back later and say, we're not going to pay that much money. We're going to pay everybody 89% or 85%
Has
of
it
their
been holding
entitlement.
steady, or has it been dropping?
It dropped and went from, it was originally 89%, now it's down to 85%.
has there been a year where we got 100% of our state aid?
A number of years ago, probably not for
And what do we
4 or 5
budget? What
years.
percent do we budget?
Pardon?
What percent do we budget? And you anticipate a
I-
cutback, a haircut. What percent did you,
I think like 90%.
89,
Cut it back a little
90%?
further, yeah.
Okay.
I had one other question.
And I had a follow-up question.
You go first.
Well,
How many
'cause
questions you got? Okay.
Because you reminded me because of the promises that the treasurer said that he'll do all the work for your reporting.
We sure did.
I understand that the treasurer called a meeting for all the financial directors. Can you give us any insight into did he have any additional clarity, or did he help clarify any of the situation regarding the potential loss of funds that this district can incur?
What he talked about is similar, I think he covered some of it at the meeting last week, but, or 2 weeks ago. Pennant lost or has a potential loss of $179 million. They're the financial advisor. IMMET had a part of that. IMMET had $50 million that they have as a potential loss, and the treasurer's office is $2 million. Pennant, which has the $179,000 money that's out there, they've seized assets that they say are worth $155 million. Now, they're only worth, what you can sell them for, but theoretically, they have a significant number of assets from this individual to cover those losses, if they could sell all those assets.
Okay.
So it would say that we're not gonna, of the total $2 million for the treasurer's office, you're probably not gonna have a complete loss. How much of a loss is still a question.
Okay, and did he give you any insight into how he's allocating this loss out to districts? And then a follow-up, is there any potential retribution that township can go after IMET for the fact that IMET was, their fiduciary duties were not what they should have been?
There are a number of municipalities and districts that are coming together and talking about doing a tolling agreement, which Tim may know about more than, and filing some lawsuits. I've already talked to our attorney about it, and he's looking into it further to make a recommendation for us if we should
Okay.
join in on that. His method of distributing the $2 million was based on each district's cash position at September 30th.
So we potentially could have butting of heads with other districts because they could believe
They
that
may.
they don't believe that's a proper or equitable allocation.
Correct.
We also, I thought you were going to say, we have a potential claim against the treasurer's office too, because they didn't follow their own rules and allowing that investment to be made.
Well, I think that, in what way?
It didn't meet the criteria. It wasn't backed by the federal, one of their choices is it's a investment that's backed by the federal government, and it wasn't. They have a fiduciary
Why
obligation
don't
to
you have
follow
our,
that too.
have our attorney look into
Okay.
if there's any,
Mhm.
derelict duties with the treasurer's office.
Have they committed to do monthly updates, or what are they?
Yes, George has said he will send out monthly updates to each of the districts. on
And we're
the
gonna hold them
situation.
to that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
There was I thought Gary had actually read it, I'll try to remember, there was an article in the Chicago Tribune the same day as they were here, but I didn't see it till after the meeting, and their analysis of this situation was nowhere near as rosy as what we were being presented during that meeting. I'll try to remember to pull it off, and I'll send it to Kevin. So
I
he
think
can
I sent it
circulate.
out in the
Did I
weekly
send it to you
update.
already? Okay.
I sent it out to the board in the weekly update.
Oh, okay, all right, thank
Tribune
you.
article.
Okay, thank you.
I think that one, it focused a little more on some of the more municipality side going after them or losing significant dollars.
Right. But if you don't mind, Matt, there was one other question, and you might have answered this already, but I'm going to ask it again. An education fund on expenditures, we're at 50%, which is where we should be. We were at 44% last year, but we're up $1.5 million over last year, which is a 20% increase. I mean, I know it was in the budget, and we probably talked about it in the budget. Why is our education expense halfway through the year $1.5 million more than last year? Do you know? And if you
I'll have
don't
to
know,
look
you
at it.
can wait.
I'll
Okay.
look at it and have an answer for you at the board meeting next month.
Thank you.
And all that semi-bad news, can you just address the state financial profile, the last two sentences in your report? Just kind of read them out loud and tell us that that's good?
Yeah, the state Board of Education issues a financial profile report every year for each district. It's based on the annual financial report that's submitted. They have 4 designations. There's financial recognition, financial review, financial early warning, financial watch. Our category is financial recognition. We got a score of 3.7 out of 4. The only reason we didn't get a 4, we got a perfect score in every one of the categories that they have, with the exception of long-term debt, and that's just simply because we have the building bonds that are out there. But we've been in that financial recognition category for the past 3 years, I believe. Prior to that, we were in financial review.
So based on that criteria, we're okay at this point?
Yes.
Thank you, good job.